Open Minds Media.
Indiana County 911. My brother's gone. Can you be a little more specific, sir? He took my brother. Who took him? I don't know who took him. I don't know what. Sir, they've done. Take a breath. Explain to me what happened.
And I looked out and there was this big red blinking UFO.
I can just say this. Something's going on in the woods. Something's going on.
They're not dogs, they're not coyotes. What could it be, right?
I had an encounter with a skunk ape, and it completely altered the course of my life.
I found a skull. Are you guys going to want to come film this?
Put him out.
I just see it.
Sightings of a UFO hovering over a barn.
Millie woke up from a dream, and when I went into the bedroom, she said there's a monster on the wall.
They saw that the creature had run through a barbed wire fence. They were able to obtain hairs. They sent the hairs to their lab, and it came back as an unknown creature.
Bizarre Encounters with Shayn Orin.
What is up, guys, and welcome back again to the most bizarre show on the internet. I am the one that they call Shane Squatch.
And I'm the big bad Boo Daddy Orin Felix.
Yes, he is finally owning up to it. About time, man.
Just leaning hard into it, man.
Dude, we've had a few people on the Instagram and on the Discord and stuff calling you that. So honestly, it's stuck. So sorry, bro. You're stuck with it now. We tried UFO Orin. We tried a million different ones, bro. But you got stuck with the big bad Boo Daddy.
Hey, like I said a couple weeks ago, I've been called a lot worse. So I think I can handle that.
Like I said, I still got to make you an exclusive piece of merch, man. I'll make you like look like Papa Legba or something and put you on it. It says Big Bad Boo Daddy on the back. It'll say, "What a magical fiasco." It'll be perfect.
I'll wear the shit out of that, man. So anyway, Shane, I hear we have an exciting update for the listeners tonight.
So, very exciting piece of news and update. We have yet another awesome community-related sponsor for the show. The newest sponsor of the show is Big Ape Threads. It is run by Joe Ramos, who recently was on Inquiries of Our Reality, sharing some of his Sasquatch experiences on his property. He just started up his merch company, and just like all the other sponsors for the show, it's not about money or anything like that. We don't have any kind of money setups with all of them. It's basically just about helping each other out in the community, you know, promoting each other and stuff. So we wanted to add him onto the roster because we think he's doing an awesome job with a lot of his cryptid-related merchandise. So if anybody wants to check that out, there's a link that is going to be available down in the show description to check that out. And just to throw in, we do have a new affiliate link. Not that it's anything super big or serious or set up. Sticker Mule is what we usually print out a lot of our stickers and shirts and stuff like that through. They recently set up an affiliate program, so now we have an affiliate link through them. And if you guys decide to use that, you get a $10 credit right off the bat to be able to pick up some stickers and stuff. And they always do some awesome deals where they'll do like 10 stickers for $1. So definitely go and check that out, and it also helps us out with the show. And of course, Orin, we got to keep beating this one up because it's almost there. It's slowly coming up. So I want you to let them know we're going to be in a few weeks.
Yeah, I know you guys are probably sick of hearing us talk about this, but Small Town Monsters Monster Fest 2, June 29th in Canton, Ohio at the Doubletree by Hilton downtown Canton. Kids 12 and under are free. We're going to be vending. We're going to have the whole crew there. So if y'all are in the area, definitely stop by and say hey.
And if anybody has an encounter that they would like to report to us for us to possibly use for the show, maybe even investigate, or just have somebody to talk about it with, you guys can report those to ommencounterreports@outlook.com. And there also is a submission form on all of the different link trees for Open Minds Media, Bizarre Encounters, Inquiries of Our Reality. So don't forget to submit those encounters.
And you guys also remember to submit your own questions for Bizarre Inquiries or most of the time Patreon exclusive mini show.
I like how we word that, most of the time. And if you guys want to support the show, best ways of doing so, of course, is through one, leaving us a review or rating if you guys think that we deserve / earned it. Those will definitely help us boost up in the algorithms and make it so the show keeps being able to grow. And of course, we love being able to read those on the show. Number 2 is through the OMM Patreon. Over there, I recently updated the tiers about 2 weeks ago. Added a new ad-free / early access tier. That's a $1 tier. So now there's a $1, a $3, a $5, and a $10. So I changed those around a little bit. There's a 7-day free trial for a few of them. So a great way to go and support the show. Also made it so that you get bigger merch store discount promo codes for the merch store, of course. I want to make those bigger for everybody that's involved with the Patreon. And leading into that is the second way you guys can support the show, is through the OMM merch store. Over there, I got a bunch of awesome designs for Bizarre Encounters, Inquiries of All Reality, and I got a bunch of other cryptid, paranormal, UFO-related designs. The newest one I dropped says Alien or Demon, and it has this really cool alien/demon-looking face. It's kind of depending on how you want to look at it, because it says Alien or Demon, you decide. I'm a big fan of it. I thought it turned out really cool. So if you guys think that sounds like something you guys might be interested in, because it's definitely something we've been talking about on the show for a while now, go and check out my new design I worked on.
And as always, you guys get up with us through social media. We've got the Discord you guys can be a part of. Check us out on TikTok. Check us out on YouTube. All that good stuff. Just follow us and keep in touch with the Open Minds Media family.
And of course, every single thing that we've mentioned is all available in the link tree, which is available down in the show description. And talking about streamlining, minus our, ranting a little bit back and forth in the beginning, we've cut this down to 3 minutes. So there you go, guys.
Hey, I think that's an all-time record.
So. Oh, yeah. And we're slowly getting it down to a step-by-step process. We're going to make it sound better. But yeah, 3 minutes. Now you guys will actually listen, because you guys won't know when the actual show is going to start. So,
The joke's on you. So anyway, jumping into tonight's episode, this is kind of a new concept we're going to roll with. This is probably going to be something we, kind of hit on from time to time. We're calling it Cryptid Grab Bag. And if you guys listen to our recent episode when I did the kind of cryptids of North Carolina, where we just take kind of smaller encounters and string them together, that's kind of what we're going to do here, but really no type of theme or anything. Just kind of these random one-off smaller encounters with cryptids that are, really cool encounters, but maybe not enough for an entire episode. So that's kind of the idea for this one. And if any of you guys out there have suggestions or maybe like local cryptids for your area that you want us to hit on one of these grab bags, definitely get up with us somehow and suggest that.
This is the magical fiasco version of local lore, because we dropped doing that a while ago, and now it's just everything's thrown in. It's the grab bag. It's the chaotic magical fiasco version of that now. So there you go, everybody.
Yeah, we love our magical fiascos over here. So
it's a magical fiasco. You didn't do the voice. You got to do the voice.
I'll do it at some point.
I'm expecting at least one for the show. There better be one at some point.
I got to keep you on your toes, man. So without further ado, we are going to jump into our first cryptid for the grab bag, and that is going to be the Dover Demon. So the Dover Demon is this weird, mysterious creature that was allegedly seen by multiple teenagers in the town of Dover, Massachusetts, which is about 15 miles southwest of Boston. And these sightings occurred in April of 1977. So the creature has kind of been described as, quote, hairless with rough, flesh-toned skin and having long, skinny extremities and tendril-like fingers. It's also said to have an abnormally large head and glowing orange eyes.
I already have a theory on this one, but I'll save it to the end. I'm sure you already know where I'm going with this, knowing where my head is most of the time with this kind of stuff.
Well, we'll get there. Just pump your jets a little bit. So, all right. So jumping into the first sighting of this creature, it occurred on the night of April 21st, 1977. And there was a 17-year-old boy named Bill Bartlett, and he was driving home along a farm street in Dover, and he had two friends with him. And while driving, Bartlett said that he saw what he described as, quote, a bizarre, unearthly-looking creature, close to 4 foot tall, crawling along a stone wall. So the creature allegedly turned its head and stared straight at Bill Bartlett when his lights kind of illuminated this creature. And later that night, Bartlett's friends convinced him to return to the spot that they saw the creature to see if they could find any signs of it. They weren't able to find anything, but Bartlett later added that the creature resembled, quote, a baby with long arms and legs, and that it had a melon-shaped head, and the head was roughly the same size as its body. So after the sighting, Bartlett drew a picture of the creature, and at the bottom of his sketch, he wrote, I, Bill Bartlett, swear on a stack of Bibles that I saw this creature. And this drawing is kind of what most of the popular depictions of the Dover Demon are based off of. I'm sure, a lot of you guys have seen this exact drawing. And if you haven't seen the exact drawing, like all the art and folklore and whatnot around this creature are pretty much based off of this drawing. So Shane, I'm sure you'll throw this one in the cover art for this one.
Oh yeah, definitely. And this isn't my actual theory for this thing, but just a joke theory, of course. Everybody knows about the whole concept of like pressurized helmets for like space travel and shit. This is what happens to aliens when they're not wearing their pressurized helmets on this planet. They become bloated and pressurized, and they're just
turned into little hairless, shriveled babies.
Because how the hell else would you walk with your head being bigger than your body, unless your head was somehow expanded? Like that's the only way I could think that would work.
What is it in Lilo and Stitch where she says like her stuffed animal like bugs lays eggs in its ears and it's about to die or whatever? I think that's what happened. That's my theory.
This is actually the backstory for whatever the hell her doll's name was. What was it?
I think it's Scrum.
Something like that. I don't know. Yeah. It was something weird.
I'm sure the listeners will correct us if not, but I think
they're yelling into their headsets right now. They're like, "It's this! It's this! It's this!"
So anyway, we're going to jump into the second sighting of the Dover Demon. And this happened a few hours after the Bill Bartlett sighting. And a 15-year-old boy named John Baxter reportedly saw a similar creature on Miller Hill Road. And Baxter was walking home from his girlfriend's house when he saw a figure approaching him. And this is kind of a funny detail, I think. Baxter initially assumed that the figure was a local child who suffered from a skull deformity. So this kind of plays into your alien spaceman, bugs laying eggs in its ears idea.
It's multiple faceted things. Yeah. Spaceman lands, the pressurized helmet breaks, and then bugs lay eggs in his ears.
Yeah. Science. So
science.
Anyway, as Baxter got closer to the creature, it took off running and disappeared into the woods.
This thing's able to run somehow with the head being bigger than its body. I just imagine it like running with its head dragging.
I did not have confirmation, but that was quite the visual that you just did for all of our audio listeners out there. But anywho, Baxter allegedly chased the creature into the woods, and he got to like this creek bed, and he stopped and looked up, and on like a rock above him, he could see the creature. And he said he could see, quote, just barely discern the feet or whatever, holding onto the rock, sort of molding to the shape of the rock. So basically how I kind of picture that is this thing was kind of like hanging off the side of this rock above this little creek bed.
How the hell do you get above him?
I don't know, very carefully, I guess. But so at that point, Baxter got scared and he ran out of the woods and back to the road.
I would have kicked it. Not literally, but this thing comes after you. You could probably bunt kick it pretty good.
Yeah, it's very top heavy. I mean, you think you could outrun it. But anyway, the following night, April 22nd, two teenagers named Abby Bramham and Will Trainter reported seeing a similar creature on Springdale Avenue. And why I keep pointing out these street names will become apparent in a little bit. But interestingly, they described the creature as having glowing green eyes, which is different than, the Bartlett sighting when he said it had orange eyes. And they said that it was roughly the size of a goat, which seems oddly specific to me. Like, why not say like a dog or, a goat just seems like a weird thing to...
They were just poor goat farmers, just simple people. That's the only thing that they had for reference because they couldn't afford dogs because they needed to take care of their goats.
Maybe so. I have no idea about the socioeconomic status of Dover, Massachusetts in 1977.
Goats. That's the economy. It's run on goats.
So this was the last reported sighting of the Dover Demon. But this is kind of cool, I thought. Lauren Coleman, who we're going to talk about a couple times in this episode, he was one of the primary investigators of this sighting, and I'm sure a lot of listeners know he's just a renowned cryptozoologist. If you're listening to our show, you know who this guy is.
If there's a cryptid, Lauren Coleman's probably touched it at some point. Not literally, but touch the topic
touched it in like a sensual way?
Very sensual way.
Okay. Only with consent, of course.
Cryptids love Lauren.
Yeah.
He knows how to touch him right.
He's also allegedly responsible for naming the creature the Dover Demon, which I thought was kind of cool. And at the time of the sightings, a local news report stated that, quote, the locations of the sightings plotted on a map, lay in a straight line over 2 miles, which I think this is kind of cool because it get back to like concepts of ley lines and things like that. So just kind of an odd little detail there. And so it was also noted at the time that the creature was kind of reminiscent of the Hopkinsville goblins, which we have a whole episode about. You guys definitely go check that out. So this led people to believe that it could have been some sort of extraterrestrial type creature. And kind of piggybacking off of that, the case was investigated by MUFON. And this is kind of funny because none of the eyewitnesses reported seeing a UFO or anything like that. So kind of odd that they decided to investigate. So did MUFON know something that maybe they weren't letting on? Certainly not.
Always.
MUFON wouldn't do that.
Always.
So this I thought was pretty cool as well. So there are also a lot of similarities between the Dover demon and a race of trickster entities from Cree Indian folklore known as the Managishi, I believe is how it be pronounced.
Yes.
And these entities were said to have large heads, long, thin arms and legs, and 6 fingers on each hand. So, I mean, how many times are we going to see this 6-finger motif pop up? And they were also said to inhabit the rocks and boulders of riverbeds and creeks, which kind of gets back to the Baxter sighting. So, of course, skeptics have claimed that the Dover demon was just probably a misidentified animal. People have suggested a foal, which is a young horse, or a moose calf. Both of those seem kind of far-fetched to me.
Maybe if the moose calf had mange?
And bugs laid eggs in its ears.
And bugs laid eggs in its ears, of course.
But it's also been suggested that our boy, the snowy owl, could have been responsible for these sightings.
It was also swamp gas too, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Owls and swamp gas, everything.
That's what the eyes were, just big balls of swamp gas.
So you remember when we did our Flatwoods episode and this like super stupid convoluted owl theory that they had to explain the Flatwoods monster? This one's close. It's not quite as dumb, but it's right fucking up there. So it was noted that, quote, the long spindly arms and fingers of the supposed creature could be the partially opened wings and the splayed feathers at the wingtips of a snowy owl.
And they just fly on the ground. That's just what they do regularly, right? That's just.
And they got big bulbous heads and like
no
like
hair
owls have
or anything.
fat little bodies. Like they're not even remotely shaped like this thing was.
This is almost as ridiculous as it was a bunch of vultures just throwing it up for the whole Kentucky meat shower.
It's not quite that stupid, but it's in the ballpark. So at the time of the sighting, police theorized that it was probably just, kids on summer vacation and they were just joking around and it was a hoax. But anyway, so that is all I've got on the Dover demon. If you want to jump in and thought and theorize a little bit.
Yeah, I got to throw my theory because I think I have a really good theory on this one. So obviously everybody knows my whole thing about wanting to dive into the underground beings / cave dwelling beings. And if I remember reading right when I was digging into notes for this one, it's at some point I was digging into the Dover demon.
Yeah, I know you've done some research on this one as well, so I was kind of curious to see where you landed on it.
There was some kind of reference to there being like cave openings or caverns and stuff like that in this area too. So again, knowing the way I tend to go into things, this thing was spindly, kind of weirdly shaped, lightly complected. Could this have been another sighting of an underground dweller / cave dweller / thing that has adapted over time to live in complete darkness?
Yeah, I think that's probably the best theory because this thing really doesn't seem like it was an extraterrestrial. Like we said, no craft was seen. People commented on the connections between the Hopkinsville goblins, but it's described very differently. The behavior's different. This thing did not seem, like an athletic, intelligent being like the Hopkinsville goblins did. This is kind of like a sickly, deformed type creature. So yeah, I think like some sort of cave creature, moon-eyed people type situation is probably my favorite theory as well.
That's honestly the one I'm going to have to go in. And speaking of that, of course, I got to throw this one in there. I do have an underground being episode planned out that we will be hitting very soon for everybody that's been hearing me talk about that forever. That is already in the works and coming up.
We're just going to have to break the glass and do, because I mean, we've teased that one for a while. We've been skirting all around it.
It's just one of those things. I'm so into it. I just want to make sure it was like perfect, but I think I'm just going to try to run it and just see where it turns out. And if all else fails, I'll just do a part 2.
Yeah, we'll have to hit that one for you guys soon. But anyway, so that's all I had for the Dover Demon. And Shayn, now I'm going to kick it over to you for our second cryptid for the grab bag.
So for the second cryptid, this is going to be one that we talked about way earlier in the show, back when Ghost was one of the co-hosts. This was like within the first 15 episodes before people really started listening to the show and stuff. So I wanted to be able to bring this one back up because I feel like it would work perfect for the Cryptid Grab Bag. So we're going to be talking about the Puerto Rican Chupacabra. And for everybody that doesn't understand why I specifically said Puerto Rican Chupacabra, there's a very different description from the American Chupacabra and the Puerto Rican Chupacabra. The American Chupacabra is usually described as like the mangy dog looking thing. And the Puerto Rican Chupacabra is more so described as this like two-legged reptile, like hominid looking thing. So very different descriptions, even though they all kind of fit under the category of Chupacabra. But
well, maybe we can hit the American Chupacabra on a future grab bag, since we did the Puerto Rican one here. That would be kind of a layup to do for the next one.
And there is possibly a pretty good actual sighting and physical proof of that one, if it's not, because it was never tested as a dog with mange or anything. So that'd be a really good one to get into. But as for today goes, we're going to be talking about the Puerto Rican Chupacabra. So the most common description of the Chupacabra literally means goat sucker in Spanish. It is a reptile-like creature said to have leathery or scaly greenish-gray skin and sharp spines or quills running down its back. It is said to be approximately 3 to 4 feet tall and stands and hops in a fashion similar to that of a kangaroo. So there you go. A little bit of a different description. This thing's got the spiny thing down its back. It almost slightly kind of seems like it fits the visual description of the Lake Thetis lake monster.
Well, and it seems to me like in a lot of the, kind of cryptid artwork and whatnot, the Puerto Rican Chupacabra is kind of the one that's generally portrayed more often, it seems like to me.
It's a lot cooler to draw, and you actually know what the hell you're looking at. Otherwise, you just draw a normal one, and most people just think it's a dog with mange. So, I mean.
Yeah, who had bugs lay eggs in its ears.
Everything that acts weird has bugs in its ears. I guarantee it. That's just how things are.
Gas, owls, bugs lay eggs in its ears.
I'm going to make a shirt with that. It's just going to say there's bugs
like
in its ears.
The 4 horsemen of the cryptid apocalypse.
Well, we added the 4th, so we're the ones who doomed everybody. So, so in 1975, a series of livestock killings in a small town of Mocha, Puerto Rico, was attributed to El Vampire de Mocha, the vampire of Mocha, initially. It was suspected that the killings were committed by a satanic cult. Later, more killings were reported around the island, and many farms reported loss of animal life. Each of the animals was reported to have its body bled dry through a series of small circular incisions. The first known attacks where the creature was called the Chupacabra happened in March of 1995, of course, in Puerto Rico. 8 sheep were discovered dead, each entirely drained of blood. Investigators found 3 strange puncture wounds in the chest of the animals. Despite the odd circumstances, authorities could only attribute the killings to a known predator, a fox perhaps. Otherwise, however, recognized the similarities in these deaths to the enigmatic cattle mutilations which had been taking place in the American Southwest was increasingly regular. The first sighting of the Chupacabra was seen by Madeline Talento, who created the basis for the famous drawing of the Chupacabra that we know today. The woman said she saw the beast through a picture window outside her house in Canovias, Puerto Rico, during the second week of August 1995. In a 1996 interview, Talento said that the bipedal animal had dark gray or black eyes that were damp and protruding, running up to the temples and spread to the sides, like typical alien eyes. Its height was about 4 feet, more or less. At the time, it was walking like a human on both legs. Its arms were drawn back in an attack position as though it were a TV monster. She said it had 3 long, skinny fingers, and its arms were also very long. Its hair was rather short and close to its body, rather well combed, in fact, as she stated. In Canovias, about 30 citizens claimed to have seen the Chupacabra, swearing that it had swooped down from the sky and leapt over treetops. It wasn't until November 19th, 1995, that a detailed description of Chupacabra came from an eyewitness. On that autumn night in Puerto Rico, the creature struck again. Farmers awoke to a horrifying scene. Dozens of turkeys, rabbits, goats, cats, dogs, horses, and cows dead, with no explanation. Just the mysterious markings left by the blood-drinking Chupacabra. But in the central city of Cagis, a startled homeowner caught the world's first fleeting glimpse of the goatsucker. Described as having huge red eyes and hairy arms, the creature allegedly broke into the bedroom of the house through a window, tore apart a child's stuffed teddy bear, and left a puddle of slime and a single piece of rancid meat on the windowsill before disappearing. This is actually what happened with the Kentucky meat shower. It was actually Chupacabras throwing just chunks of meat, because apparently that's their calling card. They just leave chunks of meat, right?
Or a vulture just threw up this chunk of meat that appeared on this windowsill, and it had nothing to do with the Chupacabra.
That's what happened, man. A vulture flew in when this guy was sleeping, flew around his room, scared the guy. He thought it was a Chupacabra, and then it threw up a pile of meat on his windowsill and took off.
Yeah, that's just as likely as the meat shower.
And then there was also a big ball of swamp gas outside, and an owl. An owl was also watching.
And bugs in its ears.
That explains the head, right? Through the end of 1995, Chupacabra had been blamed for more than 1,000 mysterious animal deaths, all resulting from blood loss through one or more puncture wounds. In that time, several more eyewitnesses came forward, consistently describing the creature as being monkey-like, but having no tail. They characterized it as having large oval red eyes that sometimes glowed, gray skin, a long snake-like tongue, fangs, and long spinal quills that may double as wings. Those who saw it say Chupacabra stands between 4 to 5 feet tall, hops like a kangaroo, and leaves a foul, sulfur-like stench. As with most of this weird stuff, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
At the site of some deaths, unidentified 3-toed tracks were found. Zoologists could think of no known animal that adequately fits the strange portrait. A man named Layzell was on his balcony when he noticed something standing at the far rail. He realized that the creature on the edge of the balcony was unlike anything he'd seen before.
So kind of jumping into some of my observations on this one. You hit on the sulfur smell. I mean, how many times are we going to talk about that? Glowing red eyes, that pops up time and time again. And, this 3-toed, 3-finger type print, that's something that's popping up a lot in our research here lately. So I thought that was kind of interesting. Of course, we, talked about, they kind of hit on it in the notes, the cattle mutilation aspect of this. And the other thing that I thought was kind of interesting is just like the 3 puncture marks, because that's something that seems to pop up in a lot of like alien abduction type situations, is like the 3 puncture wounds. So that's just kind of some of the.
This was actually an alien scout. It was never sucking blood up or anything. The animals being killed was some other animal, some other weird creature, but this thing was going around window to window doing some scout work for the reptilians. He was like, all right, this one's a good one. This one's a bad one. This one's a good one. This one's a bad one. Yeah, everybody watch out, because there's chupacabras out here. They're taking your wives. They're taking your husbands.
Snatching your goats up.
Snatching up your goats.
But no, I thought it was kind of interesting when you talked about how people reported seeing this thing swooping down from the sky over the treetops. That's not something I had ever heard connected to the Chupacabra before. So that was pretty cool. So you taught me something in this one.
Dude, that one's the Puerto Rican Chupacabra is one of those weird ones. Like, it's the better description as far as, like, again, the more popularized visual description of what the Chupacabra is. But it seems like when you get into like the South American reports and like the Mexican reports and stuff like that, with a lot of these like cryptids things, like they're so like all over the place that I know that there's obviously like heavily pockets of people that are extremely religious in when you get more into like South America. So I almost just wonder if that also plays like a huge connotation on this stuff, because you always see like all the crazy exorcisms and everything come from like South America, Mexico, all those kind of places, Puerto Rico.
Like a lot of the stigmata and like, like apparitions of religious figures and stuff like that seems to all happen in South America as well.
So either got some crazy stuff going on, or on the other side, just because of the lens that they view things through, after people started telling stories, it turns into telephone, and then it turns into this, and it turns into this, and then people started adding their connotations into it. It just, from my experience at least, I'm not saying that anybody's wrong reporting their encounters by any means, but it just seems like all the ones from South America start getting wild after a certain point, you know?
Yeah, like this one is kind of all over the place, and this could be one of those situations that we talk about where more than one thing can be true at one time and more than one thing can be going on at one time, and it kind of just all gets lumped under this Chupacabra umbrella. You know, some of these could be kind of true to foil, just cattle mutilations, and some of them could be weird cryptid sightings, and some of them could be, you know, mistaken identifications of, you know, natural animals, things like that. And it just kind of, like you said, Game of Telephone gets lumped into this kind of cocktail of Chupacabra.
See, that's what happened, actually. They were coming and doing cattle mutilations down in Puerto Rico, and they also had an alien prisoner on the ship. That motherfucker escaped. He took off towards in the middle of Puerto Rico, and he was just trying to survive. So while that's happening, this guy's going in window to window, just trying to find some safe environment to cohabitate in. And they're also doing cattle mutilations because that's what they were there for in the first place. This motherfucker just escaped off the UFO, and they were like, oh, God, there's a criminal that escaped, but he's on Earth, so they can deal with it.
Fucking Gary.
Those guys are primitive. They'll just chase it into something with guns or, you know, pitchforks or...
Chupacabra's name is Gary.
It is Gary.
Gary escaped.
Well, Gary, but translated into alien language, that's...
Okay.
Which also...
First,
is the language that the lead singer of Korn speaks, is alien.
I mean, they kind of look like aliens. I mean, isn't one of the guitar players named like Monkey or something like that? So
all I know about Korn is that when they made their first album, they're all on meth. So take that and do with it what you will. And hopping into the next one, I will pass the microphone back over to you, Orin.
Okay, so when we were kind of exchanging notes and figuring out what cryptids we were going to hit for this one, I was super glad that you added the stuff about the kangaroo hopping in your Chupacabra notes, because this is going to play into this next cryptid we're going to talk about.
That's another theory. It was a kangaroo with mange.
Okay, that had bugs laid in its ears. So.
And also, there was an owl involved.
Yep.
Somewhere. That's what was
flying.
There
must not be owls in Puerto Rico because they didn't blame this on an owl. So.
If you see an owl, I mean, when you start getting down to the Spanish-speaking countries, it quickly turns into La Lechuza.
All right, so we're going to jump into the Enfield monster. So the Enfield monster, also sometimes known as the Enfield Horror, is a creature that was allegedly seen in a small town.
Sorry, I missed you on the last couple. I had to hit you on that one.
Allegedly.
Allegedly.
So this thing was seen in the town of Enfield, Illinois in April of 1973.
Why are all these things in April on this episode? That's kind of weird. Have you noticed that?
And in the 70s.
70s in April. Like, weird, right?
Yeah. So on the evening of April 25th, Henry McDaniel and his wife returned home to find their two children just like terrified in the state of horror. And the kids claimed that earlier in the evening, something had been scratching at the front door, apparently trying to get into the house. So they got the kids kind of calmed down and, sent them off to bed and whatnot. Later that night, Henry was awakened by scratching on the front door again. And he grabbed a flashlight and a gun, because of course he did. And he went out to the door. And he opened the door and he saw a strange creature standing in like the rose bushes in front of the house. And he described the creature as having, quote, 3 legs on it, a short body, 2 little short arms, and 2 pink eyes as big as flashlights. It stood 4.5 feet tall and was grayish colored, end quote. So McDaniel fired several shots at this thing, and he claimed that he hit it at least once. And when he supposedly hit this thing, the creature made like a hissing sound that he described, quote, much like a wildcat's. And this thing like leapt away, and it disappeared along a set of nearby railroad tracks. And allegedly, the creature was able to cover a distance of about 50 feet in only 3 jumps. So this thing is basically like, an Olympic long jumper.
Fucking kangaroo.
Well, there
with
you go.
mange. They always had mange.
McDaniel called the local authorities, and the state troopers were dispatched to his property. And during their investigation, footprints were found, and they said these footprints were, quote, like those of a dog, except they had 6 toe pads. So there we go. 6 toes again. So after the sighting, the McDaniels and their neighbors were interviewed by a lot of like local media, news outlets and whatnot. And in one interview, McDaniel said, talking about the creature, quote, "If they do find it, they will find more than one, and they won't be from this planet. I can tell you that." So I thought that was kind of an interesting quote. Like, obviously, this guy, had no earthly framework for this thing that he saw.
Just tripod aliens just be running around the middle America.
Yeah. So, but that's kind of going to play into the thoughts and theories later. So one of the McDaniels' neighbors was a 10-year-old boy named Greg Garrett, and he claimed in one of his interviews that he had seen the same creature 30 minutes before McDaniel said he saw it. But however, the boy admitted years later that this alleged sighting he had was a hoax, and he was just trying to, quote, "tease Mr. M," meaning McDaniel, and have fun with an out-of-town newsman. So a few days after the sighting, 5 men from out of town came to Enfield, and they said that they're on a monster hunting expedition. And they actually claimed to see the creature, and they supposedly fired several shots at it. So the men were actually arrested and charged with, quote, hunting violations, which I think is pretty funny. I guess they didn't have their cryptid hunting permits.
Or their flash mob permits or angry mob permits.
And so the authorities said that the men had been, quote, out drinking and raising hell, which, we've all been there. So, but 2 weeks later, there was a second sighting. And Henry McDaniel contacted a local radio station, and he claimed that at 3 a.m., there we go, 3 a.m. again, that morning he was awakened by his dogs howling. And he said he went outside and he saw the creature again, but this time it was kind of like walking along the railroad tracks that were nearby his house. And, this kind of gets back to the idea of railroad tracks being liminal spaces, and a lot of cryptid sightings happen around railroad tracks and crossroads and things of that nature. So after hearing McDaniel on the radio, a news director from the station named Rick Rainbow, which is the best name I've ever fucking heard.
It sounds like a stripper name for a gay bar.
Well, that or the best porn name ever, one of the two.
Also, probably gay porn.
It is June, so.
It's assumed with the last name Rainbow. I wouldn't take that as any other way.
But anyway, our boy, Rick Rainbow, searched the area, and he reported seeing a, quote, ape-like creature that was in this abandoned building near the McDaniels' house. And he even claimed to make recordings of the creature's vocalizations. And these recordings were later analyzed by our boy, Loren Coleman.
Shocker.
He's going to pop up again. And he described them as, quote, a high-pitched wailing sound. So kind of jumping into some of the miscellaneous and thoughts and theories and things of that nature. It has been suggested that the Enfield monster could have been either an ape or a kangaroo that had escaped from a nearby zoo. And kind of the kangaroo theory is, Henry described this thing as having 3 legs, and a kangaroo's tail could have been mistaken for a 3rd leg. But everybody's just kind of sleeping on the possibility that this thing just had a really big pee-pee.
I was going to say, or he's just fucking hung.
Yeah. Him and Rick Rainbow are just out there making magic in the woods. But
Magic he'll show you the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow if you're lucky.
if you play your cards right.
Play your cards right, you might just see the end of the rainbow, if you know what I'm saying.
So after the kind of widespread media coverage of the sightings, a man from Ohio came forward, and he claimed that the creature could have been his pet kangaroo, which he had supposedly lost the year prior.
I don't know what the fuck happened to it. It just got out one day. I don't know, man. How do you find a kangaroo?
Well, and I'm no geography buff, but this happened in Illinois. This guy was from Ohio. That's a long way for a kangaroo to go, and nobody be like, hey, there's a fucking kangaroo on the loose. So.
Right? Unless it's one of those things that people see a kangaroo and they're just like, I didn't just see that. I'm going to go about my day now.
That looked like a cryptid with a really big penis.
That motherfucker hung.
Him and Rick Rainbow. So, however, McDaniel was adamant that what he saw wasn't no kangaroo, quote. And also, like, the footprints that were found at the property were nothing like kangaroo tracks. Like, there are 6 toes on this thing, and kangaroo tracks have, like, distinct claw marks, and this thing did not have claw marks on the tracks they found. So in 1978, so a few years later, the Enfield monster sightings served as the basis for a Western Illinois University case study on social contagion. And according to the study, these sightings were, quote, an example of collective behavior where a group or crowd can be affected by the spread of group emotions such as panic, hysteria, collective visions, and extreme instances of suggestibility. So take that for what it's worth. And also kind of wrapping things up here, the Enfield monster, Enfield horror, should not be confused with the Enfield poltergeist. And this is a controversial paranormal case that occurred in Enfield, London, England between 1977 and 1979. So still kind of same time period, kind of weird. But this case was investigated by Ed and Lorraine Warren.
Woo!
And it's actually kind of the basis for the Conjuring 2 movie. So there we go. That's what I got for the Enfield monster.
And since we're still not quite at an hour yet, we're going to throw in another short one here, which was one that we had covered on a really, really old episode, but I don't really hear it get much attention, so I figured it might be a fun one to cover again. So, okay, so hopping into the last one, we're going to be talking about the Mantis Man. So, the Mantis Man was an insectoid cryptid reportedly sighted near Hackettstown, New Jersey by 2 unrelated fishermen. The creature was described as standing about 7 feet high, having mandibles and large, intense black eyes. One observer described the creature as fading as it moved up the river bank where it was spotted, leading to speculation that perhaps the beast was using camouflage and bending into its surroundings. The second observer reported hearing a humming and feeling tingling sensations, and seeing the Mantis Man spread its wings when observed by him in a threatening gesture. It also eventually vanished as if into a fog. The odd thing about the 2 sightings that were presented is the fact that both men were out fishing and saw it near a body of water. Praying mantises don't usually spend their time in water. They usually spend their time on leaves and in the forest, though mantis may be able to swim in shallow water. With its huge size, it can touch the bottom of the river without its whole body drifting away through the current. In all of the reports, the Mantis Man doesn't harm anyone. It's likely afraid of people who encounter it because it seems to always run away when they get close to it. So, diving into the first sighting, they say, I am chest high in the river. The first thing I see was the grasshopper thigh, but bending forward like a human. Then the whole form. He was looking at me over his shoulder, moving up the bank, astonished and amazed, the witness wrote. He claimed the sighting occurred in Hackettstown, where he was fly fishing. A similar sighting was also reported near Stevens State Park, while 2 men were fishing around dusk. The pair described the creature as a gray and black 6 to 7 foot tall praying mantis-looking man. The second report, this took place in Hackettstown, New Jersey also. The stretch of the Musconetcong River here is unusual in its west bank borders, which is Route 46, a local highway congested with lots of stores. But the east bank, where we were fishing, borders fields and farmlands. No bank to speak of on the developed side, but the sloping bank on the rural side was high, about 10 feet tall. A stripe of trees about 10 to 20 yards thick separated the river from the fields beyond, but there was the occasional gap/path, each about 20 yards wide, that allowed clear access to the river. Like I mentioned, the weather had been bad the previous several days, but the sky was white and heavy. It was mid-afternoon. When I first saw the Mantis Man, it was in one of those gaps, moving back up the bank towards the fields, looking back at me over its left shoulder, about 15 to 20 yards away. So understand that it was about several feet above me. I looked up at it, and framed clearly against that blank white sky. Like a full ghost apparition, it was indeed clear, but nevertheless transparent and fading fast. Then it evaporated mid-strut. Again, I stressed the strong impression that the Mantis Man was cloaked, and I caught it just right. It abruptly found itself against a new blank background and was adjusting quickly. No, I do not believe it was slipped into another dimension/plane. I detected movement and first saw that strong left thigh and strong right calf, then the whole thing, and immediately those eyes/face. The whole encounter was only a couple seconds. I cannot tell you with any strong certainty what its feet or hands looked like. I wasn't looking there. But I can tell you that its arms were normal, not the literal mantis forearms I have recently seen in drawings of these aliens. Number 3, unlike the two on Monsters and Mysteries in America, there was in fact another sighting of the Mantis Man. The police report tells that another man, Mr. Strickler, saw the Mantis Man in the riverbank. I saw something strange a few weeks ago on the Maconicon River near my home here in Hackettstown, New Jersey. I was driving home from the drugstore on Newburgh Road. As I drove near the bridge over the river, I noticed to my left something, I thought it was a fisherman, standing in the river just off the south bank. I slowed down the car and looked closer. It wasn't a person. It was transparent-like, with a weird shape. It moved slowly towards the bank and into the trees. I drove further so I could see it coming out of the trees. That's the last I saw of it. It was about 8 feet tall or so and had long, thin arms hanging off of it. The color was a pale brown, but I could see through it. The head was small compared to the body. It was summer that day, so I thought it may be glare from water, but after I thought about it, I realized I wasn't seeing a mirage or glare. I checked the internet and didn't see anything about it. I mentioned it to a coworker in my office at lunch on Wednesday. He gave me the strangest look. I thought, uh-oh, he thinks I'm nuts. We went back to the computer and he brought up the Hackettstown forum with the Mantis Man witnesses. And getting into some theories and possible explanations, people claim that the Mantis Man may have been an experiment gone wrong, and someone who couldn't control it just set it free near the river. It could have been a mutation in a breeding situation. Unlike it being short, it would have been massive. Some people speculate that there are more than just one of these mantises roaming around. The reason why most people think it's a giant mantis instead of being something else is because it looks and does things like a mantis. Camouflage, spreading its wings, the mouth/mandibles, etc. Now, while most people think it might just be a large praying mantis, other people suggest that it might be an alien. Possibly some alien may look like insects in some ways. It's impossible for the current atmosphere to sustain a praying mantis this large, so it's likely that the mantis is an aquatic creature resembling a praying mantis. Like all things, however, it is definitely possible that it could have been a complete hoax. But diving into a lot of the stuff that we dive into, and I'm sure you've dived into it with a lot of the UFO stuff, about these mantis-like beings that seem to be like the watchers.
Type aliens, yeah.
Yeah, and they're usually like the watchers. Like, most people don't have aggressive encounters with these things, but they kind of like watch from a distance. I know that I've read a good handful of encounter reports of people seeing mantis-like things watching them from a distance, and they also say that they kind of dissipate into like a fog. Like,
when these mantis type beings are also like really associated with kind of more like hollow earth type concepts as well, and there's a lot of folklore about these type of beings coming up from the earth, especially in like a Native American mythology and whatnot. So this could be one of those situations where it's not extraterrestrial, but more like an ultra terrestrial type thing. This is just something that's been here on Earth for, forever, and people are seeing these things. And the other thing I thought was kind of interesting is the whole like phasing in and out, like almost like the predator type situations that we talk about with
these are what people are actually seeing in the woods. They relate it with Sasquatch, but there's these fucking like mantis Sasquatch things everywhere.
Like Skinwalker Ranch type stuff, So I thought that was kind of cool too. So yeah, I think it's totally possible that these people are seeing whatever these like insectoid mantis, like hollow earth entities are. And that kind of gets back to your, kind of cave dwelling entities idea. Like, I don't think this was probably an alien. I think this was probably more whatever those things are, but that's just kind of my read on it.
Like I said, man, like you also have the idea about, we talked about it a million times in the show, like gigantism that happens from being in water. And if this is in New Jersey, I don't know exactly how close it is to the ocean, but this thing could have been something that came from the ocean and kind of washed up through the streams. And maybe it's something that's a little bit more like real world, like you said, than something that's like off world, so to speak. Or on the other option too, if there are things like this out in the woods theoretically, and they do use camouflage such as a mantis would use, maybe a lot of these, you know, predator-like camouflage reports that people are talking about could all be this same creature. It's just a matter of it actually being cloaked in camouflage when they visually see it. Like there could be a shit ton of reports of these and we're just not categorizing them properly.
And it could be another one of those situations where this thing can present itself different ways to different people. So, you know, it might present itself as a Sasquatch to some people, and it might present itself as a Mantis Man to other people, but it's still doing, you know, the cloaking, the phasing in and out, the pixelation, all that kind of stuff. So that's a possibility as well.
Definitely. Hold that thought. We, of course, have to give a big shout out to some of our sponsors of the show and affiliates. So without further ado, Orin, let them know about our sponsors.
Y'all check out our buddies Rick and Hans with I Know Squatch. They're killing it with all your squatchy gear needs. And then our buddy Joe with Cryptoteology. You know, he's killing it with all your webbable cryptid favorites.
And you guys can check out Snarly Yow for a fantastic line of beard oil, beard balm, beard shampoo, and body wash, all with an enticing woodsy aroma of smoky cedar with a hint of mint. And that's not all that the Snarly Yow does. He also does some other stuff, Orin. Why don't you let him know about it?
That's right. If y'all are in the West Virginia area, definitely check out some of the events that Dave, a.k.a. the Snarly Yow, puts on. He's an awesome dude, and he puts on some awesome events, and we will be speaking and emceeing at Cryptid Halloween 3 this October.
And moving into the affiliates, if you guys haven't already checked out the newest sponsor of the show, Oregon-ite, definitely go check it out because Oregon-ite specializes in scale model pyramid replicas, EMF protection devices, and much more. And if you guys find some stuff on that website that you guys really want to get for yourselves, you guys can use code OMM at checkout to receive 10% off your total purchase. And moving on to all the paranormal investigators out there, if you guys haven't already checked out the Chattergeist, highly recommend that you do. It is my absolute favorite paranormal investigating device. Barry over there is a really awesome, really intelligent guy who put this thing together, and he's always working on it, creating new patches for it, and trying to make it so that it doesn't, go out of date within like a year or so. He wants to keep updating on it. So now is the time to definitely pick up a Chattergeist. It's one of those paranormal investigating devices you won't have to worry about going out of date. And if you guys decide that you guys want to get one for yourself, you guys can use our affiliate link to receive 10% off at checkout. And if anybody has any technical questions about it whatsoever, you guys can hit up Barry over there on Dimension Devices on Instagram, and he'll be able to answer any questions that you guys might have. And also, don't be discouraged at the fact that it's in pounds, because the company is based in the UK, but of course, while using PayPal, it will convert over to US currency.
And if y'all want to find out some more information about our sponsors and affiliates, that information is in the show description as well.
Now, back to the show. So, guys, this has been our Cryptid Grab Bag. They're all very short ones. Our first Cryptid Grab Bag. But there will be more to come, if you guys enjoy these episodes, of course. And
more to come? Like Rick Rainbow and the big PP monster?
Yeah, he's going to come everywhere.
Ayo.
Ayo. But I will make sure, on my side at least, that I'm not taking these from old notes on the next one, because as everybody can tell, my note style has changed a lot from when I first started the show versus now 2 years ago. So it's kind of hard to read my old notes, if I'm being totally honest with you.
But so guys, we hope you enjoyed that one. Definitely give us some more suggestions for cryptids you'd like us to hit for future Cryptid Grab Bags. But you guys know the drill. Do the normal stuff. Contact us, social media, the submission forms, all that good stuff. You know how to get up with us.
And if anybody is interested in podcast and or audiobook production services, you guys can shoot me a message through Open Minds Media, and we can hopefully set something up. And if you guys enjoyed this episode, don't forget to share it with friends that you think might also enjoy this episode. Or if you think there's anybody that might enjoy the show as a whole, don't forget to share the show with your friends and family. And anything you guys do, we greatly appreciate. And every single thing that we mention is all available in the link tree, which is available down in the show description. And I have been the one that they call Shayn Squatch.
And I've been Big Bad Boo Daddy Orin.
Boo! And guys, just like us, we get unhinged, we get weird, we don't give a shit. So guys, always, always just like us, stay bizarre. Bizarre. Bizarre.
The monster had a huge penis.